Good afternoon, guys. We've had a little bit of a technical hitch, so sorry for being a little bit late. And Lydia is not with me at the moment because she has some new earphones, and they were making a sound like an echoey robot. So she's just turning her computer off at the moment, and Lydia will be with us very, very shortly. So how are you all doing today? Hello, Lisa from Newtown College. Lisa, I think you won the goodie box last week, didn't you, if I remember rightly? I am packing that up right at the moment, should get that out to you today. So well done for last week. Tracy Richardson, hello from Chichester College. Hello, Tracy, how you doing? Stacey, hello, Stacey. There's Laura from Middlesex, from Chichester College. Hello, Laura. And there is Bon. Hello, Bon. How you doing? From Chichester College. Oh, we've got Alex here. Hello, Alex. How you doing? From Chichester. We've got Amanda from MBTC. How you all doing, guys? I shall be doing another competition towards the end of the presentation today. So there'll be another goodie box going out to all you guys. So please, I'm not going to tell you just yet what the question is, but we'll get it going as soon as Lydia joins us, and we're a little bit way through the presentation. Hello, Ellie. How you doing from Chichester College? We've got loads on from Chichester College today. Laura, hello, Laura. There's Emilia, oh, from Chichester. Wow, how you doing? Anna, how you doing? Amanda, I need to win this. Well, stay tuned, Amanda. This could be your lucky day. I've got a good feeling, so stick around. Here's Lydia. Hey, how you doing?
I am absolutely fine. I'm just so sorry, everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties. Can you hear me okay?
We can sort of hear you, but you sound like a Dalek.
Oh, no.
Is it the same for everybody else? Can everyone else hear Lydia like a Dalek, or does she sound okay to you?
Hello, testing, 1, 2, 3.
Lydia, Amanda says she can't hear you.
Oh, no.
What do you reckon that is then, Lydia?
They are digging up the road directly outside the salon.
Really?
And they, have just arrived today. And I think that is probably why I am experiencing some problems with our internet.
Gotcha. But you'd have thought they wouldn't have affected the sound. You know, if your internet, because your actual picture is good.
Yeah, it must be the connection, because
What about if you take these off? Does that help? Yeah, everyone's saying you sound like an alien. Dalek. Yeah, it sounds like a robot. Because when we tested them last week, you had the same issues with the earpods, didn't you?
Yes.
That's it. You're back.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know what you've done, Lydia, but don't touch it now. It's perfect.
I was sweating there.
No problem. We was all having a little bit of a natter without you. Everyone, does Lydia sound good now?
I'm so sorry, everyone. Is that better?
Yeah, live stuff. It's live, right? You can never predict exactly.
It's all fun when it's live.
It's working now.
Yay!
We're back on. So, without further ado, I know that you all know Lydia, a staff at LSE, who's just recently become a member of the FAME team. So I'm sure we'll touch on that a little bit and see what Lydia's been up to in the last few weeks. But without further ado, over to you, Lydia.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again. And thank you, everyone, for your patience. I'm so sorry for my late arrival. That's very embarrassing, but we're in, we're here. And I promise to get better at working out how to use computers. Much better hairdresser than I am an IT technician, I promise you. So thank you so much for having me again, Lee. And thank you everyone for tuning in. It's really good to see you all. And today, I can't wait to show you some tips and tricks about highlights. I have actually done a masterclass before on highlights, so I don't know if there will be anybody else on here who's already seen my previous masterclass about highlights. And in the previous masterclass, I talked a lot about a very modern kind of beachy blonding techniques that are really popular in the salon right now. But today I'm going to be showing you something completely different, but using the same techniques, using the same recipes, just showing you how versatile we can be and how creative we can be by using the same techniques and recipes, and how many different looks we can create.
Great, sounds good.
So, yes, without messing about, I'm going to go straight in to showing you our beautiful model for the day. Looking gorgeous, as you can see. And what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be creating a creative color. And what we mean when we say creative color is just about anything. There's no real specific look that you're going to create with creative color, but it's often using things like vivid colors or using something outside of the standard natural techniques where we're trying to mimic the hair in a way that it would be natural looking. Instead, we're trying to make it look unnatural, vivid, vibrant, different, individual, unique, and give the client or the model a look that is going to make them stand out in the crowd, stand out on the street, and people's heads turn. So these are really good kind of techniques, or this is a really great way of adapting your techniques to create great looks for competitions, for photo shoots, and for day-to-day clients that have that little edge or that personality that wants to really stand out and be different from the crowd.
Tell me this, Lydia, is creative colouring, is it always with more vivid colours, or could you do a creative colour that the overall effect was still quite subtle, but say the placement was creative?
Totally. Absolutely. So a creative color could be 4 different shades of brown and caramel placed in a way that just looks really interesting and beautiful. Creative color is thinking outside the box with your color choice and your color techniques, and making something that is really bespoke to the client. Gotcha. Cool. So one of the, well, I'd love to hear in the comments how many people have already been through in class or have tried the forehead highlights recipe from Lee Stafford, because that is the technique that we're going to be using today, but we're going to be twisting it up and changing it around to give you the power to be more creative with your highlights. So when you're doing a creative color, placement is everything. So it might be that you choose the placement based on what the client has asked for, or it might be that you choose the placement of your creative color based on a result that you want. For instance, they want to be quite subtle, or they have, let's say, a very corporate job, but they're a really fun, funky person on the inside. So they want their creative color to be there, but 9 to 5, it can't be on show. So at the weekend, it's good. They can do styles that shows off the color more. And then, you know, during the week, they can be very corporate and smart looking.
So would you call your colour a creative colour, Lydia?
Yes, I would call my colour a creative colour, even though it's, you know, natural colours, but the placement is creative.
But it still looks quite sort of sophisticated as well, doesn't it?
Oh, thank you very much. But yeah, I like to think so. You know, I like to think it's a good way of showing clients that you can be quite unique and individual and maybe quite fashion forward with colour, but without choosing blue or pink or purple. You know, you can still stand out from a crowd and be remembered for your hair.
Nice, like that.
So when we're choosing our placement, one thing that is really important if we're going to be doing creative colour is to remember that sometimes less is more. And obviously we've heard that cliche time and time again, less is more. But what I mean by that is if you have a lot of placement, a lot of different colours going through, then they're all going to kind of mix together and actually sometimes look more subtle than if you just had one area where you'd put your creative colour placement that's just going to draw the eye to it, and you're going to see this pop of fashion colour or this pop of caramel, let's say, on a nice brunette. So sometimes if you put loads and loads of colour in, it's actually less effective, but you've done way more hard work and you've had your client sat in the chair for far longer, and actually you blow dry it and the result is a bit underwhelming. So sometimes that's something to remember. Choosing your placement carefully and choosing it right is actually more important than doing lots and lots of hard work and putting in lots and lots of colour.
And I suppose that comes with experience, doesn't it? Or is, I mean, where would you learn?
I think it does come with experience, and that is the thing about creativity, is to be creative, you have to have some knowledge of the foundations, you have to have some knowledge of the basics, don't you? So that's why we kind of say learn those recipes, perfect those recipes, and then when you're really confident with them, you can say, right, how can I adapt this recipe to give my client a little bit more of a bespoke edge to her look? So that's about being confident with the techniques, then you can get a bit more creative. However, we can teach you creative looks, and then you can repeat those looks and put your own brand on it by changing up the color choice, for instance. So today what I'm going to show you is something that will be, I think, really helpful to you, not just to teach you how you can adapt your Lee Stafford highlights, but also I'm going to show you a really cool look that you can then repeat for clients or for college competitions or anything like that if you wanted to.
Yeah, great. I heard Anthony Hopkins saying something the other day about his sort of acting technique, and he was saying that, you know, he'll learn the words, the script, what he's got to say. He'll say it 100, 200 times till he knows it inside and out. So when he gets on set and he has to act, he's not even thinking about the words, you know, because they are just there, and that allows him then to be very creative in the way he expresses it, you know. I suppose that's a similar kind of thing, really, isn't it?
That's such a cool analogy, because it's so true, isn't it? You know, if you can do something with your eyes closed, that's when you can really put your stamp on it, put your mark on it. You can do a full head of highlights without even thinking about it. Then just think about if you confidently changed a few things about it, how that would look.
Exactly. Lisa Lewis says, how long did it take for you to feel confident about doing more creative colours, Lydia?
So I actually touched on this, I think, in our last masterclass, but I want to be transparent and upfront and really open with you guys, but please don't take this as discouraging, because this isn't to say that you won't feel confident straight away in certain things, but it really did take me 4 years before I really felt happy with the creative work that I was putting out, and probably another 2 years until I really felt like I was good, like really great at it. So don't worry if you're still on the learning journey. Because if you talk to any really great hairdresser, they will tell you that it takes time to really know everything there is to know. It takes a long time to be a lawyer. It takes a long time to be a pharmacist. It takes a long time to be a doctor. We're a really skilled, highly skilled industry. And so although it only takes a year to become qualified in our industry, the learning doesn't stop there. And so it, you know, whilst you might be qualified, you will still be on a learning journey, and your confidence will still isn't going to be instantly great the minute you get your certificate. So it's almost like the beginning, really. It's like a fresh start, and that's not to be discouraging at all. That's just really exciting, you know, and it's something to really express to clients and other people as well, that hairdressers are really highly skilled people, and you can't just learn it overnight.
No, because if you could, everyone would be doing it, and there'd be no jobs for great hairdressers then, would there?
Exactly.
You know? Like anything you do, it takes time to get really good at it. I mean, it took me, 10 years before I liked anything. And you'd have the odd day where you'd do a bit of work that would really make you feel good, and that would spur you on. And then you'd have a load of haircuts that you was beating yourself up about, and you just go through that bloody, roller coaster, don't you, all the time?
Yeah. Lee, I still have those days.
Yeah.
I still beat myself up sometimes, and that's, that is the truth. And, every Instagram famous hairdresser, every magazine famous hairdresser, celebrity hairdresser, they have days where they think I could have done that better. So don't worry if you don't feel like you're perfect yet, because you're still on a journey that never stops. And don't ever think, oh, well, maybe I'll never be good at this, because it's just not true.
Yeah, and I think if you've got high standards, you're never going to be at the standard that you want to be.
Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with having high standards.
No.
The best hairdressers have high standards.
You reach for the stars, and if you don't quite hit them, you'll still be covered by stardust, right, Lydia?
Love that. I'm stealing that. I'm sorry, I'm stealing that one. So let's talk a little bit about placement before we go right into what I'm going to do, because I'd really love for you to take away some ideas as well and some knowledge. We're going to put some creative colour into a pixie haircut today, and it's going to be some vivid colours in there. And so I want to have a little think and a talk with you about how I've chosen the placement that I'm going to choose. And so you can take away some ideas on some haircuts that you do in the future as well, and how maybe you would place your creative or vivid colours. So thinking about what we know about the head shape and hair cutting and the fall of the hair, most of our recipes start with a horseshoe, don't they? So that is a really good bit of knowledge for us to have for our colouring and our creative colouring as well. So if you think about the horseshoe, that's the top of everything we see. Doesn't matter where their parting is, that is the top. So that's going to be the most visible area. And then we all know where the occipital bone is, don't we? So that is down the centre back. We've got this little kind of bobbly bone called the O bone, and it meets with kind of the centre of our ears horizontally. So if we put any creative colour under the O bone, the effect that we're going to get is either something that you can see when someone has long hair and they flip it to the front, and you can kind of see a little hint of colour underneath. And it's also where we might put, say, hidden colour. So some people call it, hidden or hidden rainbows. We could do creative colour that is only visible when somebody ties their hair up, or when they deliberately style their hair.
That's a nice touch, isn't it?
It's cool. It's so cool. And because in the last 10 years, vivid colours and creative colours have got so good that people who've never been able their whole life to experiment with creative color have actually gone, oh my gosh, you can have rainbows in your hair. That's amazing. Well, I'm a mum now, or I work in a really corporate job, or, an old client of mine worked really high up for IBM, the big computer company, but she was like, I want creative color. I'm cool. I just, will get in trouble if I have anything too crazy. So hidden colors are really good for that, because you could tie it all back, but equally you can show it all off if you want to.
Yeah, nice.
So that's kind of what would happen if we put placement under the oboe. If we put placement under the horseshoe, then we get an effect that people call peekaboo. So it's going to be visible when we let down the horseshoe. The color will be visible, but it will be kind of peeking out of a veil of color of hair that sits over the top. So it'll be quite soft, quite subtle. And then either if you deliberately tie up the top, or if the hair blows in the wind, or you have a haircut that has a lot of movement, the color will peek through. So it'll be like a peekaboo effect if we do it under the horseshoe. So that would be really, really nice if the person doesn't want like hard kind of stripes or anything too visible, just really kind of very classy effect. Then if we start putting the color in the horseshoe, this is when we get really kind of vibrant block coloring. So really cool examples of this are color blocking, which is really popular right now. If you kind of look on Pinterest or on Instagram at color blocking, you'll see people literally doing like these hard stripes of color, which is really cool. It kind of is a bit of a repeat of a trend that was really popular in the 2000s, isn't it? The kind of stripy look. Another one is these money pieces or face frames that people are doing of really hard block colors, which looks awesome. So that's the kind of creative color that you would get if you did it inside the horseshoe. So you would, it would be on show. You'd be able to see it all the way up to the root, and it would be a lot more visible. When you're choosing the placement of your creative color as well, you want to think about what direction the hair is going to fall in. So this is when it's really helpful if you have done the haircut first. So a lot of the time when we're doing restyles, we cut the hair before we color it. And the reason that we do that is so that we can decide where the hair is going to fall. My haircut, I bring it forward from the crown. So a lot of the hair at the back sits forward, and I've got this very thick, heavy fringe as a result. So if I was putting in creative color, I'd need to think, where is this hair going to sit on the head? Is it going to sit to the side in a center parting, or is it going to sit forward because I brush my hair forward? So with that in mind, I am going to be sectioning off something inside the horseshoe, but it's going to be in the fringe area, because I'm going to be doing a pixie haircut with a very heavy fringe. And when we're choosing an area of creative placement, this is when it gets really fun. You can create shapes in the hair, but those shapes, you need to think, what is, if I create the shape, what is the result going to be? If anybody has like a piece of paper with them, or you've got something you can doodle on in front of you, have a little doodle and think of a shape. So whether it's a star shape or a moon shape or a triangle, square, rectangle, you'll see there's corners and lines and areas where the shape might be thinner. So in a moon shape, you've got a thin area at the top, haven't you? And then it gets thicker, and then it goes thin again. So think of a crescent moon. You've got these two little points, haven't you? Thin areas and thick areas. If we turn that into color, then thick areas are going to have a lot of color, and the thin areas are going to have a smaller amount of color. So have a think about where you would want just to have a small, subtle bit of colour. Have a think about where you want to have thick, chunky areas of colour and how that would look pretty, and whether the hair is going to be on a side parting from left to right, or whether it's going to be a side parting from right to left. Is it going to be a centre parting? So these are all things to kind of bear in mind when you're choosing your placement.
Because you want to really understand where the hair's going to fall once it's dry or once you've styled it, right?
Exactly. So I'm having a little play around with her hair because she's not been cut before, even though she's having a restyle. She's not been cut before. So I need to have a think about how this is going to be when it's the finished result. And she's going to be have a heavy fringe going this way. So with that in mind, the color placement that I'm going to do and I'm going to show you today is a triangle. I'm going to do a triangle in her hair. I'm doing it within the horseshoe at the front. So with the triangle, we've got our flat side. And then I'm going to take it to a point over here. Then can you guys see? Sorry. So I've got two sides of my triangle. Got one here and one here. Now I'm going to do the last side of my triangle, taking it to the point again. And there we go. That's my triangle section for my creative color placement. So everything else, all the rest of her hair is going to be a different color. What we call a global color or a full head tint application. And then we're going to get creative in this little triangle that I'm going to bump out of the way now so I can really show you.
Amber says, what did you struggle with when you first started highlighting, Lydia?
Do you know, a lot. I struggled with highlights a lot. But one of the things that I really struggled with was to get the highlights close to the root. And I can give you some tips. If that's something that any of you struggle with, I can give you some tips on that. Another thing that I think I really struggled with was getting the foils to look neat. And I would look at all the other stylists working in the salon that have been hairdressing for a lot longer than me, and I think, oh my gosh, your foils are so neat. Why are mine so messy? But my foils got neater with practice and time. And I think focusing on the result being perfect was my first phase of my training journey with highlights. And getting the results, once the results were perfect, automatically my foils became neater because I was more experienced by this point. So don't worry if the foils don't look amazing to begin with. But saying that, you know, try and be as neat as possible, because if you're neat application, then your result is going to be really lovely and neat. If you're going really, really messy, you're not going to have an amazing result. They're the two things I think I've struggled with most. So there's my little triangle section, everybody. I don't know how well you can see.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to take my first section, which is at the front of that triangle. And this is going to be my first foil, my first slither. So when you're doing highlights, obviously touches in the video for your recipe about this, but you can create different results with different stitches. So you can create a very chunky result by taking thick stitches and taking them very deep into your section. Or you can take kind of surface sections, surface kind of highlights, which will be finer and not as deep, so shallower stitching. But you can also take medium size weaves, or you can take very, very fine weaves. So on this section, I'm going to take a very chunky, deep weave. That's my first foil. Now, I'm going to take a gorgeous, dark, bright pink colour. Feathering up to the roof.
Wow, that is going to be a contrast.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. What was your worst experience with highlights, Laura says, Lydia?
Oh, honestly, Laura, I've had more than one bad experience with highlights, so, but it's all part of the growing process. I can't think of a specific moment because, you know, the great thing is you learn from your mistakes and you move on. So I try not to hold on to the bad experiences too much. I try and remember the good experiences, but I've definitely had bleeds before, which is when the color leaks out of the foil and onto the client's scalp, and you can end up with like a bit of a blurry blob of color.
What do you do when you do that? Do the clients notice, or do you have to go in and color correct it?
It really depends on where it is. You know, one thing that I like to do is be really honest with my clients. If I see a mistake, I'm usually the person to point it out, because if they go home and see it, they're probably going to know that you saw it when you were blow drying, and that makes them lose respect and trust for you. So they're going to go, oh, Lydia would have seen this when she blow dried it and she just never even mentioned it. She obviously doesn't value me very much as a client. But if you say at the chair, I'm really sorry, but I've just seen there's been a bit of a bleed, and it doesn't look bad. It's underneath. You're probably not going to see it. Would you like me to correct it today? And sometimes they'll go, oh, God, that's not even noticeable. Don't worry about it. That's fine. Or they might go, oh, yeah, is that all right? Would you mind just weaving at weaving a little low light into it to break it up? And they're in the salon for 20 more minutes and the result's perfect. So sometimes being honest is actually, you know, it's awkward sometimes, but people trust you and respect you more for being open.
Honesty is always the best policy, right?
I think so, don't you?
Absolutely.
Cool. Next foil. So talking about bleeds, I'm going to take a really fine stitch this time. So we did like really chunky last time. We're going to do really fine stitch. Fine weave.
So why would you mix that up? Why would you do one that's thick and one that's fine?
So that is all part of the creative process.
Oh, gotcha.
So we've got a chunky one because it's going to be a different result. So that bright pink color, I've done a chunky weave. We're going to do a nice hot purple for this one.
Oh, wow.
So the pink is going to be quite thick streaks. The purple is going to be quite soft streaks. And they're going to mix together and look gorgeous. So, you know, it doesn't have to be uniform. It doesn't all have to be the same. Now, to make sure I don't get any bleeds, I'm folding over the foil before I put it up to the roof. And that's giving me a little...
Back on yourself, Lydia.
Yeah, so when I'm putting it in, I'm folding it back on itself instead of forward on itself. And I'll show you why that is in just a sec. And honestly, I've been doing it ever since I started hairdressing, and it has saved me so many bleeds and undesirable results. So fold number 1 of our foil, fold number 2, and then just before I fold in the sides, I'm going to lift my foil up and I'm going to take the tail of my comb and just shunt it up to the root and then fold in my foils. And what you get then is a little bit of protection from the colour bleeding out of the top.
And Anna has asked, how long would it take you to complete a full head of highlights on an average sort of hair of a client?
So a medium thickness head of hair, I usually, I book out an hour and a half. It takes me an hour and a half to apply. If it was finer, it might take me less than an hour and a half. And if it's thicker, then it might take me over an hour and a half. I mean, some people have mountains and mountains of hair, don't they? And that might take me over an hour and a half. And once you start getting into that, then you have to think about, oh, am I going to have to rinse off the back separately from the front because it will be developed sooner? So you need to think about your development times and make sure that, you know, if you're taking, say, an hour and 45 to 2 hours on a full head of highlights because you've got someone with a beautiful mane of hair, then, you know, the foils on the back have been on for 2 hours by the time you finish the last foil. So you really need to think about whether you're going to need to be rinsing off separately. But yeah,
would this be the same if it was for a tint, not bleach? Would you have to worry about rinsing it off?
It's very rare that I would have to do it for a tint, but say for a creative colour where I had lots of placement of foils and then a tint all over in between, then yeah, sometimes I would have to rinse off the back separately from the front. So next, I don't know if you've just noticed this, sorry, because I was chatting. I haven't weaved at all. I've just put the full section onto the foil, and this is called a slice. And this is going to give us like the strongest result because it's just going to be a pure slice of colour. And I'm going to do this in this gorgeous turquoise.
Emily's just asked, Emilia has asked, do you mix that peroxide or just apply the colour straight to the hair? So,
really great question. This is what we call a direct dye or a semi-permanent. It's a type of semi-permanent colour, and it's a direct colour. And that means that it doesn't have to be mixed with a developer, so it doesn't need to be oxidized, so it means it's a non-oxidant color, it's a direct color, and it's semi-permanent, so it will be wash in, wash out, and over the next kind of 15 washes this model will expect to see the color fade. So we're going to do another slice now. So I did my pink chunky weave, I did my purple fine weave, I did one turquoise slice, now I'm doing another turquoise slice, and remember I did a triangular placement section. Well, what you're going to notice is naturally to stay inside that triangle, my foils are starting to pivot. So they were kind of nice and straight, and now they're starting to pivot round to stay within the triangle. What that means is we're going to have a lot of colour on one side and then a thin amount of colour on the other, like I was saying, points and thicker areas. So we've got a thick area of colour at the base of our triangle, and at the point of our triangle, we're going to have a very fine or thin area of colour. So pivoting around again, and I'm doing another slice. This is my last turquoise slice. I'm doing 3 in total.
I've just got a competition question for everybody to win a Lee Stafford box of products that I will post to you. And the question is that when one of the college trainers has completed every single recipe that you guys learn at college, and we have 22 of our classic recipes. Once a college trainer has got a 10 out of 10, it's our big 10, that's our Michelin star equivalent in each recipe, i.e. they can do that recipe as good as I can do it in the video. They can follow the steps, same result, then they get a big 10 for every recipe. Once they've got big 10s for all 22 recipes, then they get a gold pair of Joel scissors, one of the best pair of scissors in the world with their name engraved on it. And the reason why we wanted to give college trainers some gold scissors when they've achieved all of those big 10s is because we wanted everyone to be reminded for the rest of that college trainer's life, every time they picked up them scissors to do someone's hair, they would be reminded, everyone would be reminded, the student, the client, the colleagues, the college trainer themselves would be reminded of the passion, determination, and the skill that it took to achieve all of those big 10s. So how many college trainers in the Lee Stafford Education Network have achieved their gold scissors? That is the question.
That is a good question. Right, so I've done 3 slices. I'm going to do another pink chunky wheat. Sorry, I'm slightly awkwardly set up with my trolley behind me.
No problem. Are highlights becoming very popular?
Do you know, yes is the answer, because I will say that there was a little dip where I started to find that highlights were less popular than they've always been for me in my career time anyway, because balayage took over, and balayage was the thing to have.
Yeah.
However, I've noticed a kind of flip of that where people are starting to realize they can create the effects of balayage with foiling and highlights and get lighter, stronger results, because when you're creating it in a foil, you're getting a lot more saturation and a lot brighter, whiter results. When you're doing freehand and balayage, you're getting kind of softer, warmer results. And people want these balayages that are really bright and bold. So we're kind of adapting highlights and foiling to create these lived-in, modern looks that reflect the balayage trend.
And obviously, balayage is quicker to do and cheaper to do than highlights?
Sometimes, but we actually block out the same amount of time for a full head of balayage as we do for a full head of highlights. And the only difference is, well, you know, sometimes to do freehand and balayage, you need to use foils as well. So often the cost is the same.
Gotcha. But do they have to come back as regular for a balayage?
No.
So is highlights better business overall, do you think?
It's very good business, but you can also create lived-in looks with highlights.
Right.
So you can create these really bright white looks, but then say put a root shadow over the top. That would mean that the client doesn't have to come in as regularly still. So So it depends. It depends on how blonde they want to be and how close to the root they want that blonde. But you can create that with highlights or with balayage. And, you know, choosing appropriately for each client.
What do you prefer doing, Lydia?
What, highlights or freehand?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good question. I think if I did more of one than the other, I probably wouldn't love them as much. I think because I do kind of an equal amount of both, I really enjoy both. Because then I get a little bit of balayage, a little bit of highlights. I probably do more highlights than balayage, definitely at the moment, I think.
Yeah.
Because of the way the fashions are going. But yeah, I do have to say, I'm in love with highlighting at the moment. I'm really enjoying being creative with my placement and seeing the fashions and the trends that people come to me with. So that was one more purple fine weave. And that is our creative placement. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to colour all this blonde hair with a full head tint technique, and I'm going to colour it a beautiful metallic lilac grey colour. And so you can see where I've done my creative placement, and you see how, because it's in that triangle shape, it sort of pivots around. But I've used just the same highlighting techniques, same foiling techniques from the full head highlights, just been more choosy about my placement and where I'm going to put it. Would you like to see the result?
Yes, please. So would you have just done a standard root, not root tint, full head tint on the rest of it?
Absolutely. So I go through and I do my root tint, and then I would bring the colour through to the ends.
And you do the hair in between the foils, the blonde hair as
I
well?
would indeed. So that is that. I would have to then take my tint brush and do my root application and bring it through the ends. And I probably do that last. So I do my full head tint everywhere else, including my root tint in between the foils. And then last but not least, I'd bring all the foils back and I paint the colour in between the foils so that none of the colour goes onto her face. So
and tell me this, Lydia, when you had the tint brush with the tint on it, would you go straight into the roots first, or would you go into the mid-lengths and ends to get rid of some of the colour and then do the rest on the roots?
I would go straight into the roots.
You go straight into the roots. There you go.
Yeah, because I want to make sure that I've dabbed it in between.
Yeah.
Got quite a bit of nice saturation in between.
Nice.
So 20 minutes later, and this is her.
Wow.
So she's had, I say 20 minutes later, she's also had a haircut, hasn't she? So we did a short graduation, but I've kept it quite heavy at the back so that it goes in nice and low into the graduation. And here. So you can see.
It's all sitting at the front, isn't it?
Exactly. So that is why my placement was all in the front. And also where I've done my triangle. So this was the area where I had the thicker amount of hair. And this was the area where I had my triangular point. So you can see I've got more of my global colour where I had the point. So more of my lilac-y grey there. And do you see those kind of chunky bits of pink? And some very soft, fine bits of purple. But because they're very soft and fine, they kind of in there, just subtly mixing together. But the strongest colour is my slices.
Absolutely. And is that all going to wash out the blonde or not?
Yeah.
It will. So she'll be left with, so she's not really committed to the colour.
No, not at all. Not to any of this. So the lilac will probably wash out to a really nice, clean white blonde. And then these vivid colours, they'll go pastel-y. So for a few weeks, she'll have pastel turquoise and pastel pinks. And then eventually she'll have a blank canvas again, and she can either go, natural and professional, or she can have greens and yellows and oranges next time.
Yeah. So you can have a lot of fun with it, can't you?
You can have so much fun with it. You know, and obviously if she then came to me and she said, actually, Lydia, like, I love this color so much, I don't want to be anything else ever again for the rest of my life, then we could explore more permanent options.
Yeah. Could you do a color like that permanent?
You can do. Some color brands do permanent vivids.
Yeah.
But something really, really important to learn is permanent doesn't mean permanent, and semi-permanent doesn't mean semi-permanent. It all fades. All hair colors fade. I don't know if you've ever used a red or a brown. Those hair colors don't stay as strong as when you first have them done. They do fade regardless of whether they're permanent or not. So if I did this color in permanent, it wouldn't look as good 6 weeks after she'd had it done as when she first had it done. It would just last longer. It wouldn't go back to completely blonde.
Yeah.
Just be more pastels and faded versions of her color.
It's very, very nice, Lydia. It looks very cool, doesn't it?
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah. What does everyone think of Lydia's colour and little haircut? Lovely little haircut as well.
Oh,
Let us
thank
know
you.
what you think, guys. Give us some emojis or give us some feedback. It'd be much appreciated. Takes a while to come in. So the winner of this week's competition and a number of college trainers that have received gold scissors because they have achieved Big Tens in all the recipes is 41. So Elisa Maria Rodriguez Dennis wins it. So let me know where you're from, Dennis. Elisa, sorry. Send me an email so I can get the products off to you. We've got some feedback coming in here. Amanda says it looks amazing. Alex says it looks lovely. Bon said lovely colour. Thank you, guys. Absolutely stunning. Stacey's given you some hearts. And Lisa's given us a gorgeous. Jane says gorgeous. Thank you, guys. Lovely little recipe, that mashup of a recipe, that, Lydia, because, you know, you've just done literally a small little section of highlights. You haven't done the whole head. You've just picked out one little triangle placement somewhere on the head, used vibrant colours, and really, all right, you've done a tint in between, but you've used a nice complementary colour in between. And it just goes to show you that, you know, you haven't got, sometimes less is more, isn't it? You know, you haven't done too much, really.
Exactly. It goes back to what I said at the beginning when I said less is more. Do you understand what I mean now? If this placement was all over the head, would it be as effective, or would it kind of just merge into each other? You probably wouldn't get the effect or the strength of the colours if there was more of them.
Yeah, that's lovely. Very, very nice job. Thank you very much, Lydia.
Thank
Just
you.
quickly, have you done anything with the Fame team over the last couple of weeks?
Yep, I have indeed. So I had my first day on Fame team on last Tuesday.
Yeah.
And I went to Hob Academy in Camden, and I had a day with Akin Kanezi, who is an amazing creative hair cutter.
Was that good?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
yeah,
so inspiring.
He's amazing, isn't he? I remember when I first used to go to Sassoons in my early 30s every day on my days off, and there was all Japanese mainly in the Sassoons Academy back then, students from overseas, and Atkin would be the only other English person in the room with me, and we'd be sitting in the classes together. And he really is, he's brilliant, isn't he? I mean, he's a brilliant hair cutter. I think he's won British Hairdresser of the Year 3 times, hasn't he?
Yes, he has indeed.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks, Lydia. Thank you all for watching, guys. Have a wonderful week. Keep up the good work, and we'll see you next Monday at 2 p.m.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.